The morning sun streamed through the blinds of the doctor's office as Lily sat perfectly still, her hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. At 42, she was at the peak of her career, CEO of BrightPath Technologies, a company she had built from scratch in her garage 10 years ago. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence that followed Dr. Wilson's words. 3 months, maybe 4 if we're optimistic, he had said, his voice gentle but firm. The cancer has spread too far for conventional treatments to be effective. Lily blinked, trying to process what she'd just heard. Last week, she'd been giving a keynote speech at a tech conference. Yesterday, she'd approved plans for a new office building. Today, she was being told she had only 3 months to live. Are you sure? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Could there be a mistake? Dr. Wilson shook his head slowly, sliding the scan results across his desk toward her. I'm afraid not. We ran the test twice. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. It's already spread to your liver. Lily looked down at the papers but couldn't focus on the medical jargon. Her mind was racing through 1,000 thoughts at once. Her company, her team, the new product launch scheduled for next quarter, the charity foundation she'd planned to start next year, all the things she would never get to do. What about experimental treatments? I have resources, connections. We can certainly explore those options, Dr. Wilson said. But I want to be honest with you. At this stage, most treatments would focus on your comfort, not a cure. The drive back to her office was a blur. Lily couldn't remember stopping at traffic lights or making turns. She simply found herself in the parking garage of the gleaming glass building with BrightPath displayed proudly on the front. She'd designed that logo herself, back when the company was just her and 3 other people working around the clock to bring their vision to life. Now BrightPath employed over 200 people. 200 people who depended on her leadership, her vision. What would happen to them when she was gone? Lily sat in her car, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror. She looked the same as she had this morning, dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, light makeup, the small silver earrings her mother had given her for her college graduation. Nothing on the outside showed that everything on the inside had changed. Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Executive team meeting in 15 minutes. She had to go in there and act normal, make decisions that would affect the company months, even years down the line, time she wouldn't have. Pull yourself together, she whispered to her reflection. They need you to be strong. Riding the elevator to the top floor, Lily nodded at employees who greeted her with smiles and quick hellos. Did they notice anything different? Could they tell that their CEO had just been handed a death sentence? As the elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, she spotted David coming out of the break room with a cup of coffee. Her VP of operations was deep in conversation with Anna from marketing, but he looked up when he heard the elevator and gave Lily a warm smile. David had been with the company for almost 8 years now. He'd joined when BrightPath was still operating out of a cramped office with second-hand furniture, believing in Lily's vision when few others did. Over the years, he'd become her right hand, the person she trusted most with the day-to-day operations of the company. He was also a single father, raising his 12-year-old daughter by himself after his wife had passed away from a car accident 5 years ago. Lily had watched him balance the demands of his job with his responsibilities as a parent, never complaining, always finding a way to make it work. She admired his strength, his determination, his heart. Hey, you ready for the meeting? David asked as he approached. The team from R&D is bringing the prototype for the new health monitoring system. Yes, of course, Lily said, forcing a smile. I've been looking forward to seeing their progress. David tilted his head slightly, studying her face. Everything okay? You look a bit pale. Just a headache, she lied, avoiding his gaze. I'll be fine once I get some coffee. I can grab you one, he offered immediately. No. I've got it. You head in and get started with the agenda. As David walked away, Lily felt a pang in her chest that had nothing to do with her diagnosis. How was she going to tell him? How was she going to tell any of them? In the break room, she poured coffee with shaking hands, spilling some on the counter. As she wiped it up, she caught sight of the wall of photos. Company picnics, holiday parties, product launch celebrations. There she was, cutting a ribbon at the opening of their new headquarters. There was the whole team, wearing matching t-shirts at the charity run they'd sponsored last year. So many memories, so much life within these walls. The meeting went by in a haze, Lily heard herself asking questions, approving budgets, making suggestions for the prototype design. But it was like she was watching someone else perform her role, someone who still had a future to plan for. After the meeting, Lily retreated to her office and closed the door. The wall of windows offered a panoramic view of the city skyline, a view she'd dreamed of having when she was working out of her garage. Now it seemed trivial. She opened her laptop and began to type, making a list of everything that needed to be addressed. The company's leadership structure, the ongoing projects, the employees who might need extra support during a transition. It was overwhelming, but focusing on practical matters helped keep the fear at bay. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Jenny, her assistant. "Your dinner with the investors from Singapore is confirmed for 7 tonight," Jenny said. "And you asked me to remind you about your niece's birthday next week." Lily felt a lump in her throat. Her niece would be turning 9. She would never see her turn 10. "Thank you, Jenny," she managed to say. "Could you please clear my schedule for tomorrow afternoon? I have some personal matters to attend to." "Of course. Is everything all right?" "Yes, just some things I need to take care of." As Jenny left, Lily turned back to the window. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the city. 3 months. What could she accomplish in 3 months? How could she prepare her company, her legacy for a future without her? Her phone rang, her sister calling, probably to talk about her daughter's birthday plans. Lily let it go to voicemail. She wasn't ready to tell her family yet. She wasn't ready to see the pain in their eyes, to deal with their grief on top of her own. Instead, she opened her email and began drafting a message to her lawyer. They needed to update her will, set up trusts, prepare legal documents. Everything had to be in order. As night fell over the city, Lily remained at her desk, working methodically through her list. Outside her office, employees began to leave for the day, calling out goodbyes to each other, making plans for dinner or drinks. Normal life continuing while hers had been put on a countdown. When the office was quiet, Lily finally allowed herself a moment of weakness. The tears came suddenly and violently, sobs racking her body as she curled up in her chair. She cried for the future she would never have, for the dreams she would never fulfill, for the people she would leave behind. When the storm of emotion finally passed, she wiped her face and straightened her clothes. There would be time for more tears later. Right now she had work to do. 3 months wasn't long, but it would have to be enough. Enough to ensure that Brightpath would continue to thrive. Enough to say goodbye to the people she loved. Enough to leave behind something meaningful. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her phone and dialed her sister's number. It was time to start saying the things that needed to be said, while she still could. 2 weeks had passed since Lily's diagnosis, and she had thrown herself into work with a frenzied energy that surprised even her. Sleep had become a luxury she couldn't afford. Not when every hour was precious, not when there was so much to do before her time ran out. The office hummed with its usual activity that Tuesday morning as David walked through the main entrance, balancing a tray of coffee cups while checking his watch. He was running late, something that rarely happened. His daughter had woken up with a fever, and he'd spent an hour convincing his neighbor to watch her for the day. "Morning, boss?" called out Raj from IT as David hurried past. "Brought coffee for the whole team today?" David managed a smile. "Just for the department heads. We've got that budget meeting in 10 minutes. He made his way toward the conference room, nodding at colleagues as he passed. When he reached Lily's office, he noticed her door was closed. Unusual for this time of day. Through the glass wall, he could see her on the phone, her face tense. He was about to continue to the conference room when he heard her voice, unnaturally loud, as if she'd forgotten where she was. 3 months is what they said initially, but the new specialist thinks it might be less than that. David froze, the coffee tray suddenly heavy in his hands. "No, I don't want to try that treatment. The side effects would make me too sick to work, and I need this time to—" He knew he should walk away, that he was overhearing something deeply private, but his feet wouldn't move. "I haven't told anyone at work yet. They don't need to know until it's necessary." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Lily's recent weight loss, the dark circles under her eyes, the way she'd been coming in later than usual but staying well into the night, the mysterious doctor's appointments that had appeared on her calendar. Lily was dying, and she was keeping it from everyone. David finally managed to tear himself away, continuing down the hall on autopilot. His mind was reeling. 3 months? Less? How was that possible? Lily was the strongest person he knew, the driving force behind everything Brightpath had become. The idea of her not being there was unthinkable. He set the coffee tray down on the conference table, barely noticing when some of it sloshed over the sides of the cups. The other department heads were already gathering, chatting about weekend plans and project deadlines. Normal, everyday concerns that suddenly seemed trivial. Lily walked in a few minutes later, her professional mask firmly in place. "Good morning, everyone. Let's get started, shall we?" David watched her through new eyes, noticing the careful way she lowered herself into her chair, the slight tremor in her hand as she opened her laptop. How had he not seen it before? The signs had been there for weeks. The meeting proceeded as usual, with Lily leading the discussion about the next quarter's budget allocations. She was sharp, focused, challenging assumptions and pushing for clearer projections, just as she always did. If David hadn't overheard her conversation, he would never have guessed what she was facing. When the meeting ended, the team dispersed, but David lingered, gathering his notes slowly. When everyone else had left, Lily looked up at him questioningly. "Everything okay?" she asked. He wanted to confront her, to demand why she was keeping this secret, to ask how he could help. Instead, he heard himself say, "Just wanted to check if you needed anything for the investor presentation tomorrow." "I think we're all set," she replied, closing her laptop. "Though if you could review the financial projections one more time, that would be helpful." Of course, she stood to leave, and for a split second, David saw pain flash across her face before she quickly composed herself. "Lily," he said impulsively, "you know you can talk to me about anything, right? If something's going on." She looked at him for a long moment, and he thought she might open up. Then she smiled. That professional, reassuring smile that had convinced countless investors to take a chance on Brightpath. "I know, and I appreciate that. I'm just a bit tired these days. This product launch is taking a lot out of all of us." With that, she left, and David remained standing in the empty conference room, the weight of what he knew pressing down on him. Over the next few days, David observed Lily carefully. He noticed how she would disappear for hours without explanation, how she seemed to be methodically meeting with each department head one-on-one, how she was subtly shifting responsibilities to others. She was preparing the company for her absence, he realized. Doing it quietly, gradually, so no one would panic or fall apart. During one late evening at the office, David walked by her open door and saw her staring out the window, a lost look on her face that made his heart ache. She'd built this company from nothing, pouring her heart and soul into it for years. Now she was facing the end, and she was doing it alone. That night, as David tucked his daughter into bed, he found himself holding her a little longer than usual, thinking about how fragile life was, how quickly everything could change. "Dad, you're squishing me," his daughter complained, wiggling free from his embrace. "Sorry, sweetheart. Just thinking about how lucky I am to have you." "Is something wrong? You've been acting weird lately." Kids were perceptive, sometimes too perceptive. "Just some stuff at work. Nothing for you to worry about." But as he turned out the light and headed to his home office, David couldn't stop thinking about Lily, about the unfairness of it all, about what would happen to Brightpath, to all of them, when she was gone. He opened his laptop and began researching pancreatic cancer, reading about treatments, survival rates, symptoms. The information was grim, confirming what he'd overheard. Late-stage pancreatic cancer offered few options and little hope. The next morning, David arrived at work early, determined to find a way to help without revealing what he knew. He stopped by Lily's office with her favorite coffee, a small gesture, but it was something. "You're here early," she commented as he set the cup on her desk. "Thought I'd get a head start on the quarterly reports," he said. "And I know you've been putting in long hours lately, so I figured you could use a little caffeine boost." She smiled, a genuine smile this time, not the professional mask. "Thank you. That's very thoughtful. How are you doing, really?" he asked, taking a seat across from her. "And don't tell me fine, because I know better." Lily sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "It's been challenging, but I'm handling it. You don't have to handle everything alone, you know. That's why you have a team." She looked at him for a long moment and he thought she might confide in him. Instead, she straightened up, the mask sliding back into place. I appreciate the concern, but there's nothing to worry about. Now, did you have a chance to look at those prototype modifications? David recognized the deflection but didn't push. Yes, I've got some thoughts on that. The engineering team made some interesting suggestions. They fell into a discussion about work and the moment passed. But as he was leaving her office, David made a decision. If Lily wasn't going to let him help her directly, he would find another way. That afternoon, he noticed her leave for what he suspected was a medical appointment. While she was gone, he discreetly asked Jenny, her assistant, about Lily's recent schedule changes. She's been different lately, hasn't she? David said casually. Rescheduling meetings, coming in late? Jenny lowered her voice. Between us, I'm worried about her. Last week, I found her asleep at her desk in the morning. I think she'd been there all night. And she's lost so much weight. Has she mentioned anything to you? About her health, maybe? No, but Jenny hesitated. There was a call from a Dr. Wilson's office. They were confirming an appointment at an oncology center. David felt his suspicions confirmed. Do you know which center? Memorial West, I think. Why? Do you think something's seriously wrong? David forced a reassuring smile. I'm sure she's just getting a routine checkup. But maybe we should all try to lighten her load a bit, you know? Take some things off her plate without making it obvious. Jenny nodded, looking relieved to have someone else share her concerns. As David walked back to his office, his mind was racing. Lily was clearly determined to keep her condition secret, to maintain normalcy at the company for as long as possible. He had to respect that decision, but he couldn't just stand by and do nothing while she faced this alone. What could he do that wouldn't betray her trust or expose her secret? How could he support her without making her feel pitied or treated differently? An idea began to take shape. Something that would honor Lily's legacy while she was still here to see it. Something that would show her just how much she had accomplished, how many lives she had touched. But he would need help. And that meant telling at least a few trusted colleagues what was happening. The question was, would Lily see it as a betrayal or as the act of care and respect it was meant to be? That evening, as the office emptied and the cleaning crew began their rounds, David sat at his desk making lists of people to contact, resources he would need, and a timeline for his plan. If Lily really did have less than 3 months, he would have to work quickly. As he was gathering his things to leave, he glanced toward Lily's office and saw the light was still on. Through the glass wall, he could see her sitting at her desk, head in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. In that moment, David almost abandoned his plan, almost went to her and confessed what he knew. But something held him back. Lily had always faced challenges head-on, with dignity and determination. She deserved the chance to face this one on her terms, too. So instead of interrupting her private moment of grief, he turned away, more resolved than ever to make his plan work. He couldn't change her prognosis, but he could make sure she knew exactly how much she mattered before it was too late. The following Monday, David arrived at the office an hour earlier than usual. He wanted to set his plan in motion before the workday began, before he could talk himself out of it. The building was quiet, with only the security guard and a few early birds from the engineering team present. He'd spent the entire weekend thinking about what to do. His daughter had noticed his distraction, asking at one point if he was sad about something. Kids could be eerily perceptive. Sometimes, just thinking about a friend who's going through a tough time, he'd told her. Then you should help them, she'd said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. And that was exactly what he intended to do. David unlocked his office and pulled out a notebook he'd purchased specifically for this project. On the first page, he'd written Operation Legacy at the top. Beneath it was a list of names, people who had worked closely with Lily over the years, people whose lives she had touched, people who would want to contribute to honoring her. The tricky part would be getting them involved without violating Lily's privacy. She clearly didn't want the company to know about her condition yet, and he had to respect that. But he also knew that if he waited until she was ready to share the news, it might be too late to gather everything he wanted to include. He picked up his phone and dialed the first number on his list. Hey Tom, it's David. Sorry to call so early. Do you have a few minutes to talk about something important? It's about Lily. Tom had been BrightPath's first engineer, working alongside Lily in her garage during those early days. He'd left the company 5 years ago to start his own business but had remained close to Lily. "Is she okay?" Tom asked immediately, concern evident in his voice. David hesitated. "She's facing some challenges right now. I can't go into details without her permission, but I'm working on something to show her how much she means to all of us, and I could use your help." There was a pause. "This sounds serious." "It is, and I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." Another pause. "What do you need from me?" David exhaled, relieved. "I'm collecting stories, memories, messages, anything that shows the impact Lily has had on people's careers, their lives, the industry. I want to create something that captures her legacy." "Why now?" Tom asked, too perceptive to let the timing slide. "Is there something you're not telling me?" David chose his words carefully. "Let's just say that now is the right time to make sure Lily knows how much she matters, while she can still appreciate it." The silence on the other end of the line told David that Tom understood what he wasn't saying. "I'll write something tonight," Tom said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'll reach out to some of the other early team members too, if that's okay." "That would be great, just keep it discreet. This needs to be a surprise and I don't want rumors starting." After hanging up, David made similar calls to 4 other former employees who had been close to Lily. All of them agreed to contribute without needing the full story spelled out. They knew Lily, knew that she would never want a fuss made unless there was a serious reason. By the time people started filtering into the office for the regular workday, David had a solid start on his list of contributors. Now came the harder part, involving current employees without raising suspicions. He spotted Jenny, Lily's assistant, arriving with her usual giant coffee cup and stopped her before she reached her desk. "Got a minute?" he asked, gesturing toward his office. Once inside with the door closed, he explained his plan, or at least the version of it that didn't explicitly mention Lily's diagnosis. "I want to create a tribute to Lily, something that captures everything she's built here, all the lives she's touched. Kind of a living legacy project." Jenny set her coffee down, her expression concerned. "Why do I get the feeling there's more to this than you're saying?" David sighed. Jenny had been with Lily almost as long as he had. She deserved some version of the truth. "I have reason to believe that Lily is dealing with some serious health issues," he said carefully. "She hasn't shared the details with me, and I don't want to betray her privacy by speculating. But I think now is the time to show her what she means to all of us." Jenny's eyes widened, then filled with tears. "It's bad, isn't it? I've noticed things. Changes in her schedule, phone calls she takes privately, how tired she's been looking." "I don't know for sure," David lied, not wanting to reveal that he'd overheard Lily's conversation. "But my gut tells me we shouldn't wait to do this." Jenny wiped at her eyes. "What exactly are you planning?" "A book, filled with letters, photos, memories from everyone who's been part of the BrightPath story. Not just employees, but clients, partners, people from the community service projects she's led. I want to show her the full reach of her influence." "She'll love that," Jenny said softly. "But she'll also be mortified by the attention." David smiled slightly. "That's why we need to keep it quiet until it's ready. Can you help me gather contributions from the current staff without tipping her off?" "I can try. She doesn't miss much, though." "That's true, but she's been distracted lately, and she's had a lot of appointments out of the office. If we're careful, we can pull this off." Over the next few days, David and Jenny worked discreetly, approaching trusted employees individually and explaining the project as a surprise appreciation gift for Lily. Most were eager to participate, sharing stories of how Lily had mentored them, championed their ideas, or supported them through personal challenges. One young developer broke down in tears as she recalled how Lily had arranged flexible working hours when her mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. "She told me family comes first always, that my job would be here, but these moments with my mom wouldn't come again. I don't think I ever properly thanked her for that." The marketing director remembered how Lily had stood by him after a campaign had failed spectacularly, taking the blame publicly while privately helping him learn from the mistakes. "She could have fired me. Most CEOs would have. Instead, she taught me how to bounce back." The stories poured in, each one revealing a different facet of Lily's character, her leadership style, her humanity. David found himself moved to tears more than once as he read through the submissions. But gathering the material was just the beginning. He needed to organize it, design it, produce it, all while maintaining his regular workload and keeping the project hidden from Lily. The timeline was tight, especially given what he knew about her prognosis. One evening, as he was working late in his office sorting through the submissions, there was a knock at his door. His heart dropped when he saw Lily standing there. "Working on something interesting?" she asked, nodding toward the papers spread across his desk. David casually placed a folder over the letters he'd been reading. "Just going through some old project files, trying to clear out some space." Lily leaned against the doorframe, looking more tired than he'd ever seen her. "You've been working late a lot this week. Everything okay?" "I could ask you the same thing," he replied carefully. She gave him a small smile. "Touché. I just noticed you've been having a lot of hushed conversations that stop when I walk by, and Jenny's been acting strange. If there's something going on that I should know about..." David felt a flash of panic. Of course she'd noticed. Lily didn't miss anything. He thought quickly. "Actually, there is something," he said, deciding a partial truth was better than an obvious lie. "I've been working on a side project. Something for the company's 10th anniversary next month." Lily looked surprised. "The anniversary? I almost forgot about that." The realization hit David like a physical blow. Lily had forgotten about the anniversary because she didn't expect to be there for it. "Well, it's a milestone worth celebrating," he said, keeping his voice steady. 10 years is a big deal." She nodded, a faraway look in her eyes. "Yes, it is. I'm glad someone's thinking about it." She straightened up. "Don't stay too late, okay? Whatever it is can wait until tomorrow." After she left, David sat back in his chair, heart pounding. That had been close. He needed to be more careful, or the whole project would be revealed before it was ready. But the encounter had also strengthened his resolve. The anniversary celebration would be the perfect cover for presenting Lily with the tribute book, a way to honor her without revealing that they knew about her illness. The next day, David called an emergency meeting with the small group of employees who were in on the secret. They gathered in a conference room far from Lily's office, speaking in low voices despite the closed door. "She's getting suspicious," he told them. "We need to be more discreet, and we need to speed up our timeline." "How much time do we have?" asked Raj from IT. David hesitated, not wanting to reveal exactly what he knew. "The 10th anniversary celebration is in 3 weeks. That's our deadline." "That's not a lot of time to put together something this comprehensive," said the head of design, who had volunteered to lay out the book. "We've got submissions from over 50 people already and more coming in every day." "We'll make it work," David said firmly. "We have to." As the meeting broke up, Jenny lingered behind. "David, can I ask you something?" When they were alone, she continued, "How bad is it?" "Lily's health, I mean." "You know something, don't you?" David looked at her for a long moment, weighing his responsibility to Lily's privacy against Jenny's genuine concern. "I don't know all the details," he said finally, "but I think we need to assume that time is a factor here." Jenny's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "I thought so. She had a video call with her sister yesterday and I accidentally overheard part of it. She was talking about getting her affairs in order." The knot in David's stomach tightened. All the more reason to get this done quickly. She deserves to know what she's meant to all of us while she can still appreciate it. The project consumed David's thoughts day and night. When he wasn't at work, he was at home, reading through submissions, writing his own contribution, coordinating with the design team. His daughter noticed his distraction again. "Is your friend still having a tough time?" she asked one night as he tucked her in. "Yes, sweetheart. But some other friends and I are working on something special to help them feel better." She thought about this for a moment. "Is it like when I made cards for Grandpa when he was in the hospital?" David smiled, remembering the colorful drawings his daughter had created when his father had undergone heart surgery the previous year. "A little bit like that, yes. Sometimes knowing that people care about you can be the best medicine. I hope your friend feels better soon." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." As the days passed, the project grew beyond what David had initially envisioned. In addition to written tributes and photographs, people began offering other contributions. The engineering team was creating a digital time capsule of BrightPath's most innovative projects. The marketing department was producing a video featuring clients talking about how the company's products had transformed their businesses. And then there was the foundation. It had started as an offhand comment during one of the planning meetings. Wouldn't it be wonderful if Lily's impact could continue even after? The sentence had remained unfinished, the implication too painful to voice, but the idea had taken root. A charitable foundation in Lily's name, focused on the causes she cared about most. Technology education for underprivileged girls, support for single parents in the tech industry, environmental sustainability. The legal team was quietly laying the groundwork, and several executives had already pledged personal contributions to get it started. It was becoming more than just a tribute book. It was becoming a legacy that would outlive its inspiration. 2 weeks before the anniversary celebration, David called another meeting of the core team. The book was nearly complete, the video was in final editing, and the foundation paperwork was ready. "We're almost there," he told the group. "Everyone's contributions have been amazing. This is going to mean so much to Lily." "Has she mentioned anything more about her health?" asked one of the team members. David shook his head. "Not directly, but she's been out of the office more frequently. And she started having one-on-one meetings with each department head, going over long-term plans, that sort of thing." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. "We're doing the right thing," David said firmly, "and we're going to make sure she knows exactly how much she's accomplished, how many lives she's touched." As they left the meeting, David felt a mix of emotions: sadness at the circumstances that had prompted this project, pride in what they had created, anxiety about whether they would finish in time, and most of all, hope that it would bring Lily some measure of peace in her final months. What he didn't know was that the next day would bring a confrontation that would change everything and reveal whether his well-intentioned, secret project would be received as the gift it was meant to be, or as a betrayal of trust by the woman he respected most in the world. The confrontation came sooner than David expected, and in a way he could never have anticipated. He was in the copy room, scanning some of the handwritten tributes that had been sent in by former employees, when he heard Lily's voice behind him. "What exactly are you doing?" David turned to find her standing in the doorway, arms crossed, face pale but determined. He quickly tried to gather the papers, but it was too late. She'd already seen enough to know these weren't ordinary business documents. "I can explain," he began. But she cut him off. "Jenny told me everything." David's heart sank. After all their careful planning, all their secrecy, had Jenny really betrayed their project? Seeing his expression, Lily's face softened slightly. "Don't blame her. I cornered her this morning and wouldn't let her leave my office until she told me why everyone's been acting so strange lately. She was quite loyal, actually. Tried to pass it off as anniversary preparations for as long as she could." David set the papers down, giving up any pretense. "How much do you know?" "I know you're putting together some kind of tribute book. I know you've been contacting former employees, clients, partners. What I don't know is why now." Her voice sharpened on the last two words. "Why the sudden urgency to document my legacy?" The question hung in the air between them. David hesitated, weighing his options. He could continue the anniversary cover story, but Lily deserved better than that. Still, he didn't want to admit he'd overheard her private conversation. "I think you know why," he said finally, meeting her gaze. She stared at him for a long moment, then her shoulders slumped slightly. "How did you find out?" "I overheard you on the phone a few weeks ago. You were talking to someone about a specialist, about having less than 3 months?" Lily closed her eyes briefly, absorbing this. "And instead of coming to me directly, you started this project. I wanted to respect your privacy. You obviously weren't ready to share the news. So you told how many people about my condition? 10, 20? "I didn't," David protested. "I only told them I was putting together a surprise for you. I never mentioned your health. Though I think some of them have guessed something's wrong." Lily leaned against the doorframe, suddenly looking exhausted. "People aren't stupid, David. If you start collecting tributes to someone who isn't retiring or leaving, they're going to draw their own conclusions." He hadn't thought about it that way, and guilt washed over him. "I'm sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing." "The right thing would have been to talk to me first," she said, but there was more weariness than anger in her voice now. "Would you have let me do this if I had?" She considered the question. "Probably not. I don't want people's pity." "It's not about pity," David said firmly. "It's about recognition, appreciation, showing you what you've built, the lives you've touched." Lily was quiet for a moment. "Show me what you've got so far." David gathered the papers and followed her to a nearby conference room. Once the door was closed, he spread the materials out on the table. Draft pages from the book, emails from former employees, photos that had been sent in, preliminary designs for the foundation. Lily picked up one of the letters, then another, reading silently. Her expression gave nothing away as she methodically went through the pile. When she reached the foundation documents, she looked up sharply. A foundation? In my name? It was going to be a surprise announcement at the anniversary celebration, David explained. Several of the executives have already pledged seed money. It will focus on the causes you've always been passionate about: tech education for girls, support for single parents in the industry, environmental initiatives. She sat down heavily in one of the chairs. This is a lot. Too much? I don't know yet. She picked up another letter. This one from a client whose business had been transformed by BrightPath's software. I had no idea we'd made this kind of impact. That's the whole point, David said softly. I wanted you to see it all, to really understand what you've accomplished. Lily continued reading in silence. Occasionally she would pause over a particular letter or photo, her expression softening. When she finally looked up, there were tears in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. I need some time to process this, she said, standing up. I appreciate the intention behind it, David, I do. But this isn't how I plan to handle things. I understand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry for overstepping. She gathered the materials and handed them back to him. I'm not saying stop. I'm just saying, give me a day to think about how I want to proceed. After she left, David sat alone in the conference room, feeling a mixture of relief that the secret was out and anxiety about what would happen next. Would Lily shut down the project entirely? Would she be angry once the initial shock wore off? Had he irreparably damaged their relationship during her final months? He was still sitting there when Jenny found him an hour later. I'm so sorry, she said, looking miserable. She knew something was up and she wouldn't let it go. It's not your fault, David assured her. Maybe it's better this way. No more sneaking around. What did she say? Is she upset? She's processing. Asked for some time to think about it. Jenny twisted her hands nervously. Should we tell the others to hold off on their contributions? David considered this. No, not yet. Let's wait and see what Lily decides. The rest of the day passed in a haze of worry. David tried to focus on his regular work, but his mind kept returning to the conversation with Lily, replaying it, analyzing her reactions. He barely noticed when his phone buzzed with a text from his daughter's babysitter, asking if he'd be home on time. He was just packing up to leave when Lily appeared in his doorway. She looked composed, the vulnerability of their earlier conversation hidden behind her usual professional demeanor. Do you have a minute? She asked. Of course. He gestured to the chair across from his desk, but she remained standing. I've been thinking about our conversation, she began, about the project. David braced himself for her decision, expecting her to shut it down, to ask for all the materials to be destroyed. I'd like to see it completed, she said instead. He blinked in surprise. You would? Yes, but with a few conditions. She held up a finger. 1, no more secrecy. If people are working on this, they should know why. I'm going to make an announcement to the executive team tomorrow about my situation. David nodded, relief washing over him. That seems fair. 2, I want to be involved in the foundation planning. If it's going to bear my name, I want to make sure it truly reflects my values and priorities. Absolutely. The team will be thrilled to have your input. And 3, she continued, her voice softening slightly, I want to add my own contributions to the book. There are things I want to say, people I want to thank, including you. David felt a lump forming in his throat. Me? Lily smiled, a genuine smile that reminded him of the early days when they were working out of that cramped office with secondhand furniture, fueled by nothing but coffee and dreams. You've been my right hand for 8 years. David, this company wouldn't be what it is without you. He didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. Now go home to your daughter, Lily said, her tone returning to its usual briskness. We can talk more about this tomorrow. As David drove home that evening, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The project was out in the open now, and Lily was on board. They could move forward without the stress of keeping secrets, focusing instead on creating something truly meaningful. but the relief was tinged with sadness. Lily's involvement in the project made it real in a way it hadn't been before. A clear acknowledgement that they were indeed creating a legacy for someone who would soon be gone. When he arrived home, his daughter was waiting for him, excited to show him a science project she'd been working on. As she chattered about volcanoes and baking soda reactions, David made a conscious effort to be fully present, to treasure these ordinary moments that suddenly seemed so precious. The next morning, the executive team gathered in the main conference room for what they believed was a routine meeting. David watched their faces as Lily calmly announced that she had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and had less than 3 months to live. There were gasps, tears, expressions of disbelief and shock. Lily handled it all with the same grace and composure she'd shown throughout her career, answering questions about treatment options limited, succession plans in progress, and how they could help by ensuring the company continued to thrive. "One more thing," she said, as the initial wave of emotion subsided. "Some of you may have been approached about contributing to a project David has been organizing. I want you to know that I'm aware of it now and I fully support it. In fact, I'll be working with the team to help complete it." After the meeting, people approached Lily individually, offering hugs, words of support, promises to help in any way they could. She accepted it all with dignity, never allowing herself to become overwhelmed by the emotions in the room. When the last person had left, she turned to David. "That wasn't as hard as I expected." "You were amazing," he said simply. "Now comes the challenging part, telling the rest of the staff." She squared her shoulders. "Would you stand with me when I do it?" "Of course." The announcement to the full staff later that day was even more emotional than the executive meeting had been. Many of the younger employees broke down in tears. The engineering team, usually so logical and detached, looked shell-shocked. The customer service representatives, who dealt with human emotions every day, were among the most composed, offering practical support and organizing a meal train for days when Lily had treatments. Throughout it all, David stood beside her, a steady presence as she shared the hardest news of her life with the people who had become, in many ways, her extended family. In the days that followed, work on the tribute book and foundation accelerated. With the secret out, more people wanted to contribute, sharing stories and photos that captured moments from throughout BrightPath's history. Lily, true to her word, became actively involved in the foundation planning, meeting with lawyers and potential board members, defining the mission and vision with characteristic clarity and purpose. She was determined that the foundation would not simply bear her name but would embody her values and create opportunities for those who needed them most. She also began writing her own contributions to the book, letters to key people in her life, reflections on the journey of building BrightPath, advice for those who would carry it forward. Some days the writing exhausted her, and David would find her napping in her office, a pen still in her hand. Other days it seemed to energize her, giving her a sense of purpose and closure. But as the project progressed, Lily's health began to decline more rapidly than anyone had anticipated. The doctors had warned her that the final stage could come suddenly, and they were right. 6 weeks after her diagnosis, she began working from home most days, too weak to make the commute to the office. David visited her daily, bringing updates on the company and the project. They would sit in her sunlit living room, going over foundation documents or reviewing submissions for the book. Sometimes they just talked about the early days of the company, about hopes for its future, about David's daughter and her latest adventures in 5th grade. "She reminds me of myself at that age," Lily commented one afternoon. "So curious, so determined. Promise me you'll encourage that in her." "I promise," David said, recognizing the request for what it was, part of Lily's own process of saying goodbye. During one of these visits, Lily handed him an envelope. "This is for the book. It's personal. I'd like you to read it, but only after—" He understood and tucked the envelope into his jacket pocket without opening it. "I'll make sure it's included." As the anniversary celebration approached, it became clear that Lily would not be able to attend in person. Her doctors had advised against it, and she had reluctantly agreed, not wanting her increasingly frail appearance to overshadow the event. "We could postpone," David suggested during one of his visits, "or hold it here, just a small group." Lily shook her head firmly. "No. The celebration is about the company, about what we've all built together. It should go on as planned in the office with everyone present. Just set up a video link so I can watch and say a few words. The team began making the necessary arrangements, determined that everything would be perfect, that Lily would be able to see the culmination of both her decade of work at Brightpath and the tribute project that had taken on a life of its own. But fate had other plans. 3 days before the celebration, David received a call from Lily's sister in the middle of the night. Lily had been rushed to the hospital. The doctors were saying it wouldn't be long now. The next morning, instead of finalizing plans for the celebration, David found himself organizing a different kind of gathering. The conference room that would have hosted anniversary speeches became a place for employees to come together in grief and support, sharing memories of Lily and preparing for the possibility that she might not recover. As the day wore on, updates from the hospital grew more concerning. Lily was conscious but weakening. Her family was with her. She had asked to see David. When he arrived at the hospital, Lily's sister met him in the hallway outside the room. "She's been waiting for you," she said, her eyes red from crying. "She said there was something important she needed to tell you." David steeled himself before entering the room. He had witnessed Lily's gradual decline over the past weeks, but he wasn't prepared for how small and fragile she looked in the hospital bed, surrounded by monitors and IV lines. Her eyes were closed, but they fluttered open when he approached the bed. Despite everything, she smiled when she saw him. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I did." He took her hand gently, mindful of the IV. "How are you feeling?" "Like someone who doesn't have much time left," she replied with a hint of her old directness. "Which is why I needed to see you. There's something I need you to do for me." David leaned closer to hear her weakening voice. Anything. What Lily asked of him in those final moments would change everything, for the company, for the tribute project, and most of all, for David himself. It was a request that would test his abilities, his commitment, and his heart in ways he could never have imagined when he first overheard her diagnosis all those weeks ago. "I need you to finish what I started," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not just the book or the foundation, Brightpath itself." David stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "The board meeting yesterday," she continued, each word clearly an effort. "We finalized the succession plan. I named you as the next CEO." The room seemed to spin around him. "Me? But there are others with more experience, more." "None with your heart," Lily interrupted, "or your vision. You understand what Brightpath is meant to be, what it can become." "Lily, I don't know if I can." "You can." Her grip on his hand tightened slightly. "You've been preparing for this for years, whether you knew it or not. Every time you challenged my ideas, every time you pushed for something better, every time you stood up for an employee or a principal, you were showing me exactly why you should be the one to carry this forward." David felt overwhelmed. The responsibility she was placing on him seemed impossible to bear, especially now, with grief already weighing so heavily on his heart. "What about my daughter?" he asked, thinking aloud. "The hours, the pressure. I don't want her to lose the only parent she has left." Lily's eyes softened. "That's exactly why it has to be you, because you'll never forget what really matters. You'll build a company where people can do meaningful work without sacrificing their humanity, where parents can be there for their children, where success is measured in more than just profit margins." She paused, gathering strength for her next words. "The paperwork is all done. The board has approved it. But if you truly don't want this, they'll understand. I'll understand." David looked at her, this woman who had taken a chance on him 8 years ago, who had mentored him, challenged him, believed in him even when he doubted himself. How could he refuse her final request? "I'll do it," he said finally. "I'll try to make you proud." A smile ghosted across her pale face. "You already have." She closed her eyes briefly, the conversation clearly taking a toll. "Now, about the book and the celebration." "Don't worry about that now," David said gently. "You need to rest." "No time for that," she insisted, her eyes opening again. "I want the celebration to go ahead, even if I'm not there." "The company deserves its moment. The people deserve it. Promise me." "I promise." "And the book. I want everyone to receive a copy, not just employees. Clients, partners, competitors even. I want them to see what's possible when you build something with heart, With purpose. They will, David assured her. Every detail will be exactly as you wanted. She nodded slightly, seemingly satisfied. There's one more thing. Her voice was fading now, each word a struggle. In my desk at home, bottom drawer. There's a letter for your daughter. For when she's older. Will you give it to her? Tears pricked at David's eyes. Of course, thank you. She squeezed his hand once more, then let her eyes drift closed. For everything. David sat with her until she fell asleep, her breathing shallow but steady. Her sister returned, along with other family members, and he slipped away, promising to return the next day. But there would be no next day for Lily. She passed peacefully in her sleep that night, 2.5 months after her initial diagnosis, and 3 days before what would have been BrightPath's 10th anniversary celebration. The news spread through the company like a shockwave. Even though everyone had known it was coming, even though they'd had time to prepare, the loss still felt sudden, devastating. Work came to a standstill as people gathered in small groups, sharing memories, offering comfort, trying to make sense of a world without Lily at its center. David moved through it all in a daze, simultaneously grieving his friend and mentor, while trying to step into the leadership role she had entrusted to him. The board officially announced his appointment as CEO, but it felt hollow, overshadowed by the circumstances that had created the vacancy. The anniversary celebration was postponed out of respect, but not canceled, honoring Lily's explicit wishes. Instead of marking 10 years of BrightPath, it would now serve as a memorial to its founder and a commitment to carrying her vision forward. In the quiet of Lily's office, he couldn't bring himself to think of it as his office yet. David sat at her desk, surrounded by the artifacts of her life and career, photos of product launches, awards, team outings, a small cactus she'd kept since their first office, a framed copy of their first customer contract, and on the desk, placed there by Jenny, was the envelope Lily had given him weeks earlier, marked for the book. With trembling hands, he opened it and began to read. To the BrightPath family, it began. If you're reading this, I've moved on to whatever comes next. Don't waste too much time being sad about that. Instead, remember that what we built together was always bigger than any one person, even me. David read on, tears flowing freely as Lily's voice seemed to fill the room. Her letter was not a goodbye, but a rallying cry. A challenge to everyone at BrightPath to continue pushing boundaries, to remain true to their values, to remember that technology was only meaningful if it improved lives. She thanked people by name, dozens of them, from executives to the night cleaning staff, recalling specific moments when they had embodied the company's spirit. She acknowledged mistakes she'd made and lessons she'd learned, and she ended with a simple request. Don't preserve what I built. Improve it. When he finished reading, David knew exactly what needed to be done. The tribute book would still be completed, but not as a memorial frozen in time. Instead, it would become a living document, the first chapter in an ongoing story that the entire BrightPath community would continue to write. The day of the rescheduled celebration arrived. The office was transformed, with photos of Lily throughout the years displayed alongside milestones from the company's history. The mood was somber yet purposeful, a recognition of loss combined with a determination to move forward. As people filed into the large atrium, David stood to the side, watching. His daughter was with him, solemn in her best dress, holding tightly to his hand. He'd explained to her as best he could what was happening, who Lily had been, why this day mattered. She was like a superhero, but for business? His daughter had asked. David had smiled at the description. Something like that. She built this company from nothing, and now it helps people all over the world. And now you're going to run it? I'm going to try. His daughter had considered this carefully. You'll be good at it, Dad. You're really good at taking care of things. Now, as the celebration began, those simple words echoed in David's mind. Taking care of things. That was exactly what Lily had done, and what she was asking him to continue. Taking care of the company, its people, its purpose in the world. The tribute book sat on a table near the entrance, bound in blue leather with BrightPath, a journey of purpose embossed on the cover. Each employee would receive a copy, along with clients, partners, and yes, even competitors, as Lily had requested. When it was time for David to speak, he approached the podium slowly, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders, looking out at the sea of faces, some he'd known for years, others just a few months. He felt a sudden certainty that they would get through this together. 10 years ago, he began, Lily started BrightPath with a simple but powerful idea, that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. Everything we've built since then has been in service to that vision. He spoke about the early days, about the challenges they'd overcome, about the lives they'd touched through their work. He shared stories that made people laugh through their tears, reminders of Lily's sharp wit and unyielding standards. Many of you contributed to the tribute book we're sharing today, he continued, gesturing to the table of blue-bound volumes. What began as a secret project to honor Lily while she was still with us has evolved into something else. A record not just of what she built, but of what we all built together. And more importantly, a foundation for what we'll build next. He revealed the plans for the Lily Chen Foundation, which would support technology education for underprivileged girls, provide resources for single parents in the tech industry, and fund environmental sustainability initiatives. Already, donors had pledged over $2 million to launch its programs. But perhaps the most meaningful tribute, David said, his voice growing stronger, is the one we'll create every day, simply by continuing the work Lily began, by pushing boundaries, by remembering that our success is measured not in dollars but in impact, by taking care of each other and the world around us. He paused, looking down at his notes, then setting them aside. Before she died, Lily asked me to step into her role as CEO. I accepted not because I believe I can replace her, no one could, but because I believe in what we're building here. A murmur went through the crowd. Many had heard rumors about the succession plan, but this was the first official confirmation. I know this transition won't be easy, David acknowledged. I know I'll make mistakes along the way, but I promise you this. I will always try to lead with the same integrity, vision, and heart that Lily showed us. And I will never forget that we're not just a company. We're a community. A family. He gestured to his daughter, who was watching from the side. Lily understood that work should enhance life, not consume it. That's a principle I intend to strengthen, not dilute, as we move forward. As he concluded his remarks, David unveiled a plaque that would hang in the lobby, not a memorial, but a challenge, inscribed with Lily's final words from her letter. Don't preserve what I built. Improve it. The celebration continued into the evening, evolving from a formal event into something more intimate. People sharing stories, laughing, crying, supporting each other through their shared grief and their shared purpose. Later, as the crowd thinned and the evening wound down, David found himself standing alone in Lily's, now his, office, looking out at the city skyline. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the buildings, just as it had the day Lily received her diagnosis. He thought about how much had changed in such a short time, about the woman who had built this company from nothing, about the responsibility she had passed to him, about the future that stretched out before all of them, uncertain but full of possibility. On the desk behind him sat the letter Lily had left for his daughter, to be given to her when she was older. He hadn't read it. That was a private message from one generation to the next. But he could imagine what it might contain. Wisdom, encouragement, perhaps a challenge to continue the work of making the world a better place, in whatever way suited her unique gifts. David's phone buzzed with a text from the babysitter asking when he'd be home. He replied that he was leaving now, then took one last look around the office. I'll do my best, he said softly to the empty room, feeling somehow that Lily could hear him. I promise. As he walked through the quiet building, he passed the wall of photos in the lobby, the company's history captured in moments of triumph, innovation, and community. The newest addition was a large portrait of Lily, smiling confidently beneath the words founder, visionary friend. Next to it hung the tribute book, opened in a display case to its final page, where Lily's handwritten message concluded with words that would guide BrightPath into its next chapter. The greatest legacy is not what we leave behind, but what continues to grow because we were here. Outside, the night air was cool and clear. David looked up at the stars, thinking about all that had happened since that fateful day when he'd overheard Lily's phone conversation. The secret project that had become a community effort. The grief that had strengthened bonds rather than breaking them. The legacy that would continue, not as a static memorial but as a living, evolving reality. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities. The board meeting, the press release announcing his appointment, the 1,000 details of leading a company through transition. But for tonight, he would go home to his daughter, hold her close, and remember what truly mattered, the lesson Lily had taught them all. As he drove away from the building, David glanced in his rearview mirror at the Bright Path logo illuminated against the night sky. 3 months had turned their world upside down, bringing loss and change no one had expected, but they had also brought clarity, purpose, and a deeper understanding of what it meant to build something that would outlast any single person. And in the end, that was Lily's greatest gift, not just to him, but to everyone whose life she had touched. The knowledge that what they were building together was bigger than themselves, that their work mattered, that their story would continue page by page, day by day, written by many hands but guided by a singular vision of technology and service to humanity. A vision that had begun with one woman's dream in a garage 10 years ago, and would now continue to grow and evolve long after she was gone. The true measure of a life well lived.